Coming in on our next panel here at the International Cannabis Business Conference Berlin 2025 to discuss Germany's evolving cannabis industry. To lead the panel, we have the president and chairman of the German Cannabis Industry Association. Let's hear it for Dirk Heideprim. We ask you to take your conversations outside. If you're doing a lot of talking, take it outside. Thank you so much. Come on in.
Can I ask my wonderful panelists to join me? Hello, and thanks for everybody staying here. We are moving from medical cannabis to the evolving industry. I would like to introduce myself quickly. My name is Dirk. I'm the president of the German Cannabis Industry Association. We have an esteemed group of great panelists here, and different to our friends in the panel before, we will not just cover medical. We want to have a look at what happened over the course of the last year for the different aspects of cannabis and hemp here in Germany. I would give a very quick round that each of you can say 2 or 3 words about yourself, and then we will immediately start because we only have 40 minutes, and I have questions for 3 hours. So, Lisa.
Yeah, hello, my name is Lisa Hack. I'm the CEO of MG Universe GmbH, but within the Industry Association, I'm a founding member, and I'm part of the board, and I'm responsible for the area of technologies, commerce, and services.
Thanks, Lisa. Timo.
Hello, my name is Timo. I'm the CEO of Cannabis. We are a software and consulting company in the cannabis space and a proud member of the association.
Sita.
Hello, Sita, EUMCA. I was just told for 2 words. So.
I have my own microphone. My name is Henry. I'm CEO of Triple H Hemp Harvesting Technologies, and I'm founder and chairman of the Cannabis Social Club of Hanover since 2016. And I'm also founder of a farming or cultivation club and a cannabis cooperative in Hanover, member of the board of the BVCW, and coordinator of the work group for cannabis farming clubs in Germany.
Hello, my name is Marijn Roers van der Hoogte. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Hemp Impact. We're a platform for consultancy, trading, and education. And also with Lisa, a co-founder of the BV, or the German Trade Association, maybe easier. And I'm the coordinator of the industrial hemp part of our association.
Great, thank you. So, we heard it a lot today already. We have now approximately 1 year of cannabis, partly liberalization in Germany. A lot of things have happened. We heard about the increase in the medical market, but we haven't had a really look on the player itself. So let's get back a year or a bit more, and we all, and I know all of you, have worked tirelessly on the legalization piece. I can remember the first time we discussed that. Sita, you're special, you're European. We will get there. I can remember the first time we touched that topic was approximately 5 years ago when we started discussing the opportunities. So last year, 1st of April, Lisa, how did you feel? What were your hopes and what were your concerns?
Well, I had the same question because I had a radio interview that day, and they were really disappointed when they asked me if I'm all high blazing out, and I was like, no, I'm doing nothing because like it's finally a milestone that we achieved, and it's important so one day to take off finally. But ever since that, like I feel there have been a lot of great developments, but I think there's still a lot of uncertainty in the industry, and that's also why our work as an industry association is also so important, and that we are in continuous engagement also with the new government potentially to shape the regulations that we have to enact. So it's live now.
Timo, what were your feelings a year ago, especially from a company located in Switzerland?
Yeah, I think for a lot of us as entrepreneurs in the cannabis space, if a market opens up more, it's always good news because we have a bigger addressable market. So obviously I was in a good mood, but I'm also German, so I have always something to complain about, obviously. So there were concerns, especially for the clubs. I'm pretty sure Henry will touch on that because they are very regulated, and other things opened up and are more accessible, like medical cannabis. So that was my concern. What is my hope still is, of course, Pillar 2, and I'm pretty sure we touch on that a little bit later.
From a European perspective, when you saw what's happening here, what were your thoughts, Sita?
Well, of course, first, I'm a lawyer, so I knew nothing will happen quickly. And so I knew also that there was still not even mentioned which authority would be in charge for everything. So I think it took them another 3 months to declare which authority to go for. And I think that the reality proves it. It's a very slow process. It's still not finally elaborated. And I'm surprised that already several companies made it. And congratulations for those who made it. But I was not so enthusiastic. Not based on the fact because I'm from the medical part. But the law was quickly made, and as usually, the craftsmanship on something which is quickly made is not very well done. And I think this is also why we are sitting here, because a lot of people are not so happy with it.
Yeah, the law was quickly made. I think that's a very good topic, especially if we move over to the last two persons. I mean, I think one law was not quick enough, Marijn. We can talk about that later. But Henry, I mean, especially your part of our discussion was pulled out of the hat in the last minute, it felt. So how was your feeling based on the cannabis clubs at that time?
Seen from our perspective, it was quite a surprise. We didn't expect that we were focused by the law, and of course we had chances and challenges, and it was sort of a roller coaster. So many people felt addressed to continue with the Cannabis Social Club that they had in mind, but the law that we got is very different. It has restrictions and uncomfortabilities that we didn't expect, so we have to find how to work around, and also we creating the first stable clubs or enterprises that are necessary to produce cannabis in a club style. And the difficult thing is for the clubs, firstly, to generate the staff, the people that really do the job, and they cannot be professionals, but shall be in a club-sized sort of freiwillige, voluntary workers, so we cannot pay them, also we cannot push them to do the work. So that's the major thing, and raising the money, finding the real estate. So that's a number of problems, and we had about 2,500 club founders last year, and they dropped out. And we have seen now about 600 applications for licenses and 211 given licenses so far. So this is a rough process, and I give it time from 3 to 5 years before we see where it's actually going.
Marijn, I mean, from a hemp perspective, we were all fighting for the Industrial Hemp Liberalization Act, which unfortunately the old coalition was not brave enough to get it done before breaking
Not
up.
on time, no.
Yeah.
So everything we wanted came in the end, and then we didn't get anything at all. But I
How do you feel?
Well, I think it's two-sided. I think one of what amazed me the most is that it showed how misinformed the media was, because everybody was expecting the black market to get a dent, but there was no white market created. So how is that going to work? The only thing that could do this or fill this gap was the medical. And I think we see now how this is trying to make a dent, but it's nowhere close to really do something. But for me, the most positive thing about it was that since the decriminalization, it became possible for public officials to think about cannabis in a normal way. And I think until now it was difficult for policymakers to even include cannabis because it was an illegal substance, and so even thinking about it would make you already a thought criminal almost. And I think this is a great barrier that has gone. It will take a long time for it to really take effect, but I think in the last years we saw that this is slowly changing the course of government. And I think we saw it now also with the change of into the conservatives. They're not going to change it. It's something, the leverage has been, or how do you say that? The button has been pushed. So I don't think it's you cannot undo it. And I think that's the biggest positive effect. We just need patience, you know. Start slow, go slow.
That's a very good comment, to have patience. And we even saw, I think yesterday or the day before, that even Bavaria has approved the first 3 clubs. So things change slowly. We already heard a lot about the Medical Cannabis Act and the impacts. I mean, what we have seen in the discussion, and Peter had a very good description about that, so I don't want to go into details to that, but we heard a lot about, oh yeah, the bill was not good, it's not sufficient, the bill has so many flaws. But we also heard from a couple of politicians from the conservative sides that there are good parts in the bill which we should even focus on more in the future. Sida, you introduced yourself as a lawyer, and you have a enormous knowledge about the European landscape. So if you look at the medical part of that bill, is it that bad, or are there good elements, or what are the bad elements?
Yeah, when you look from the European perspective, not even all European countries approved medicinal cannabis. We still have the eastern parts, and it's always the same suspicious, Hungary, etc., who are at the end want to have a kind of deal to allow it. So, of course, those countries who made themselves on the way already, there's a big hamper now with flowers. Because we are now confronted in the discussion with the governments that they say, do you really want us to have that? And the €1 prescription is doing even worse. So this is, I think, a big hamper for all the other countries to establish a market, and especially a flower market. And we know from patients that flower is really badly needed when you need an immediate effect, especially in pain. So this is something, a deal breaker for other countries and for other markets to enter, because we are now faced with the discussions what we have now here in Germany.
So would the solution for you, looking on a European scale, be go back to a narcotic?
Well, this is, of course, a very broad discussion, and I think we do not have the time for the 3-word answers. But I think, let me say, I know the discussion, do we want more regulation or less regulation? And I always say the regulation is also a chance for you. Because if you have a regulation, you have the threshold how to do things. And if you don't have, you are always dependent on the will of somebody to allow your product to be in or out. So getting back to the narcotic, making that fail is also allowing, of course, each kind of, crap company to come in with something. And I don't know if anybody from Germany had a chance to see last week the documentary about the cannabis experiment with Joko and Klaas. Definitely not my favorite performers, but what they compared the quality of medicinal cannabis and the street cannabis. And do you want to know what is the biggest impurities, what they found in the street cannabis? And I hope everybody had his breakfast swallowed. Human feces. So you are smoking human feces, because this is the biggest impurity on the street cannabis. So, of course, this is not something which is hidden, and this kind of information go around. And I think this is a very big pity that all those serious growers doing a tremendous work to grow plants, if it is for medical or maybe also for recreational use, are now faced with such kind of argumentation.
To be very clear, for me, the removal from the narcotics law was the biggest win of this law. And I think that's, if we look at consumers and producers and so on, the most important element. But Timo, you have so much experience also in the recreational piloting projects in Switzerland. What do you think, why this Pillar 2 is not moving on in Germany? What do you think are the biggest issues with that?
Yeah, because it's only a little bit embedded in the Kanji law, right? And it needed a little bit of a workaround to activate. So it was not a very straightforward thing. And then due to the political situation in Germany, there was no, there were other things on the agenda to focus on. And with that, it got a little bit deprioritized. And and it was not a winning topic to push it forward. So I think it's really the political will was a little bit missing. But at the end of the old government, they pushed it a little bit, and a window of opportunity opened. Let's see if we can walk through this window of opportunity. This still needs to be seen.
If you would talk to the new government, what would you say is the lesson learned from Switzerland?
I think generally, due to the fact that it, as we all know, it was illegal, we don't have a lot of, facts and figures available. Yeah, we don't have so much data available because it was always illegal. So what we saw in Switzerland, the whole purpose of these pilot projects is to create evidence, to create facts and figures, and to, with that, have a discussion in society as well as in the political formats and the political groups about legalization. And we see that if we participate in discussions in Switzerland, it's less emotions, more talking about real data, and taking the emotions out help to make evidence-based decisions and educated decisions. And it's less drama, to be honest, and less. It's just more fact-based, and that is my hope also for Germany, to have this pilot project, to create data points which we really can talk about, because otherwise there come that wildest stories always jeopardize any constructive discussion, and this needs to stop. And we can only do that if we have facts and figures, and if we don't have them, it leaves room for interpretation and so on. So we want to do pilot projects here also in Germany to create the data. And we saw, because that was your question, in Switzerland a lot of things, right? If the bigger the portfolio you have, the less the people buy from the black market. The more you offer also for vaping and so on, you can do harm reduction, and people move from spliff and joints to vapes. That is good, it's harm reduction, and so on and so forth. So you see evidence that it makes sense, and then you see that stakeholders are also in favor of a legalization because they see the advantages, because they see the data.
Thank you. Henry, speaking about two things, emotions and varieties, and you dealt now for quite a while with our federal state system with different regulations in every part. We had a lot of discussions politically about the cannabis clubs, if that's a good idea or a bad idea. And we also have seen the first reviews of impacts on criminal statistics. So what would you say is, from a cannabis club perspective, what does the new government need to do better?
Yeah, where to start? That's exactly the question. I mean, I told you about different disadvantages in the law. It's like the participation obligation. That's one of it. You cannot send 500 members into your grows and let them cut the plants. And another
wouldn't
one
be that good for the plants, probably.
Sorry?
It wouldn't be that good for the plants, probably.
Wouldn't be good for anybody. Second one is, of course, the common consumption inside the clubs. So we can grow cannabis, but we cannot consume it together. And taxation, so there's a UVA on it and different stuff like that. But I think it's still doable. So we have at least something, and opposite to Spain and South Africa, we have a law to get along with. It doesn't make it easier always, but it makes it safer. And it takes time to find out where the loopholes are and the workarounds. And healing some of the disadvantages is probably having a second club that can do the community thing and provide the consumption rooms, for example. And different other steps. Raising the capital is something. If you want to be standalone and independent from everybody, like big investors. You have to raise your money yourself, and that's a process that you have to do, intensely, because the money is not on the street, and it is also even harder to get over the advertisement prohibition. So we cannot actively advertise with the farming clubs to get the members to show the performance, stuff like that. So there should be an easement. On the other hand, I appreciate that it is a slow start, and we don't start with open doors and get the big money in. So we have to create it and develop it from the grassroots, and involving the members, teaching them, educating them. Education is a basic thing, and coming from the membership or customer behavior, we don't know it yet, but practically it is like everybody wants to go in a shop, and a regulated shop would be the easiest thing with a controlled supply for the shops. And there is hope that we can develop the cannabis club system into that, but that's a slow process also. I told you we have 211 given licenses. That means it's something about potential 10,000 members that are supplied out of 4 million. It's a 0.000 percentage of supplied persons at this moment, but the public interest is big, and that's our chance, that we can give a picture to a regular cannabis consumer in a club and just heal the stigma that is still alive for many people or persons the public mindset is the big chance for us.
Thanks, Henry. One more follow-up question on that, because about 2 years ago, I can remember we had the public hearing in the German parliament on this bill, and there was the discussion about the cannabis clubs, and before that, you know, there were first people telling, yeah, that's not a big deal, it's a 20,000, 30,000 euro investment. You talked about raising capital. Have you been surprised about the cost, and can you give the audience kind of an idea what is really associated with building up a cannabis club under these regulations?
Yeah, because the professionals come in and then they say, don't save money on air condition, don't save money on the strains, and don't save money on everything which is my business. And we are talking about at least 6 digits, 100,000 up, but this is the absolute minimum. And many go with investments up 1 million. So, and this is private money, you know, this is privately owned money, and the chairman of the clubs are responsible for exactly that amount, and you have to rebuild the investment that you have taken.
And on the other hand, and I think that's something we need to remind politics on, if we have 200, what did you say, 220 licenses, kind of? What kind of investments have happened over the last couple of years, or in the last year in Germany on this field?
And on the way, a couple of clubs are already bankrupt.
Yeah.
So that's a huge risk also that you're taking as a chairman and a club founder.
Moving on to Lisa, you probably have one of the best overviews about what's happening in the industry, in the discussion out there. We recently saw the first statistics coming in from the criminal records that drug offenses dropped by something between 20 and 40% in the federal states. But at the same moment, it was like, yeah, that's not a big deal. You know, that's just the few users we are not following up. It doesn't show any positive impact. From your perspective, monitoring all what's happening out there, is this bill successful?
Well, at least the most important thing, what it does is it's decriminalizing personal use. And that's the most important thing, and that's something that any regulator across the globe should really pursue to do. The other thing that we have is we have an established market. We have established markets for hemp also. We have the new markets that are now coming also to the table. I think the industry itself, it became way more diverse, so we have way more areas where people can get invested into or can venture into from an entrepreneurial level. But I think in the end we still have a lot of things that have not happened and that still needs further regulation and clarification, and potentially also more central guidance from a national level, because we have a lot of federal organization in Germany, and it makes it very difficult. Or maybe for hemp also, we still don't have any good rules on hemp. We were always pushing as the industry association for the removal of the intoxication clause that is still in the law. So all those kind of things, they still need to happen in order to properly operate the segment. So this is definitely something we will still need to put a lot of legwork in.
Yeah, it's not boring. So you see, we have a very German panel, even if not everybody is from Germany over here. But we're not trying to be negative. You know, I just want to make sure you all understand that we are happy that we are where we are. Nevertheless, we all operate kind of in the lobbying area, and our job is always to poke the finger into the small, itchy wounds of the politicians to make them move in the right direction. Moving in the right direction. Marijn, I recently had a very interesting discussion with some producers of hemp materials who said, we would love to do more, but we don't even have the seeds for growing more hemp. On the other hand, we tried our very best to get industrial hemp liberalized, able to manage. I spoke with a couple of people earlier who said, you know, the demand in Europe, in the world on industrial hemp increased massively. Let me phrase it differently. What is needed and what is the opportunity for Germany, but what is needed from a political perspective to be done right now as soon as possible, and what is the perspective in the future? And I want to be clear, I always think the industrial hemp part is probably the most important in the future, because there's such a huge industry potential in there.
Definitely. Thank you for the question. I think that brings it really to the point, because you speak about the liberation, and this liberation is the liberation of industrial hemp from the medical or recreational cannabis. So now it's always cannabis is one thing. The Germans in the court still think that some people would rather buy 60 grams of hemp tea to get high instead of going to the corner and buy some, although untrusty flowers from the black market. But you know, this is the uncoupling that needs to be done. And I also think that cannabis is, as an industrial crop, just another super agricultural addition to our economy. So we don't need hemp to be put on an extra level. I think we just need to decouple it, to just take all the dogmas away from people getting high on industrial hemp, but just see it as an agricultural crop which is there to improve the soils, to improve the way we mitigate the climate, to give farmers an additional cash crop on their soils. It is a way to shorten supply chains. This is a way to get into circular economy. It's a way to start thinking about how to change your value chain with something much more local, but also a way to think we can multi-crop, for example. I see now the ways opening that hemp, because it has so many usages, you don't need to throw away anything. So if I grow hemp for fibers, the fiber guys don't want the flower. So if I create the right variety where I have a potent flower for extraction or food and a potent fiber for the fiber industry, this is a huge advantage for the farmer, because which other crop gives two high-valued products from one field every year and cleaning up the soil as an extra? You know, so from a farmer perspective, this plant is really awesome. They just need to stop being associated with being something like a drug dealer, you know, because they aren't. But still, customs come and think they have like 10 hectares of wheat growing on their acres, and I think, well, aren't you missing the point? You know, those industries, those value chains on the black market are very, very well established. A farmer cannot compete with this. It's pure illusion, and I think that's the liberation that needs to be done, and that's also the point which I made before. I think with the policymakers, this is arriving. Cannabis is becoming hemp and is becoming cannabis, and hemp is something that can bring us into the future, hold on to all the high-performing articles that we have, but with a natural source, in a circular way, and also using it for the next generations to come. So I think this is the biggest challenge that we have, and I think these first steps are being made, but we need to have a bit more patience, and as you said, we need to keep talking about it.
If we look internationally, once again, I heard today and over the last couple of weeks and months, always the message, you know, what Germany is doing is kind of a blueprint, and we are looking at it, and we want to know so my question is Germany really a blueprint for other European countries, Sita, to you, for example? But also, if we look at, we discussed hemp and other things, what can we learn from other countries? So, Sita, do you think there are other countries in Europe who really consider, and you mentioned it already, that it might be a difficulty for others, and we saw it in France with a no flower market for medical in the future. So what is your idea? Is that a blueprint? Is that helping, or is it more stopping?
Yeah, I think when you look, and yeah, sorry to be proud of it, but we are the biggest economy in Europe, and I think the third biggest worldwide. Of course, everything is looking what Germany is doing. And I think what Germany made very well was the bee farm survey. They convinced that everything what was said before, like every 20-year-old will have a prescription for back pain on statutory health insurances, this does not figure out. And I think the data of bee farm is for that excellent. The second part of this bee farm survey is it is coming from a regulator, and it is describing and defining indications. So what we would never be allowed to say is said in this survey, which at the end was also a blueprint for the GBA to continue with reimbursement in the way that all doctors can prescribe. Definitely the other countries are looking at that. What the other countries are lacking is to have the financials for the reimbursement, which we are fighting for. Because to have a prescription, like in UK, okay, first in UK you have to find a doctor who is prescribing, simply because they are so limited who are allowed to prescribe. The second one is to get it reimbursed and to find where you can have the product. So they are looking very much at it. They are also appreciating it. And for example, one I have to add is France added flour in their future availability. So I think this was a very big gain. And also the other countries we are talking, they are looking at it really severely and have also as regulators exchange with BfArM and so on, and the other authorities. So this is great, and I think this can be absolutely in blueprint. We also introduce it in the US and explain it. So I think this has a very big potential, and we just can encourage to work on data, because as we say in GMP, in God we trust, all other have to bring data. So I think this is the convincing part in everything when you're discussing also with international governments and regulators.
Thank you so much. As I want to give you the chance to ask a few questions, I would like each of you, as a final word, and just with one sentence, if you see the crowd over here internationally, what is the key message we need to take from this year to the globe? Lisa.
Well, I think after all, and you have been hearing me say this many times, I think we still need to work on the global regulations for cannabis. I think the single convention is outdated, and it affects all of us, whatever country we are in. So this should be our #1 priority as a global industry, to change the status quo and get cannabis properly scheduled or out of the schedule in best case.
Timo.
For me, it's we also need to accept what we have as a framework and work in it, make money and have a successful industry, have patient safety and succeed in our goals, also why you have the legalization. And once we complete, we have the ability to go to the next milestone. But if we complain too much and wish other things, they will never happen. If we build any businesses on hope, the hope will be destroyed. So let's work in what we have and succeed in it, and then we come to the next.
Dirk said that we are lobbying. I think that the situation is much more simpler. We have an unbelievable blessed plant with unbelievable characteristics. I think information and education is key for the future.
From Cannabis Club's perspective, I would recommend to watch the Germans develop in the Cannabis Club system and connect worldwide, globally, and try to put up more systems that work with cannabis social clubs or NCOT systems to evolve and to bring cannabis back to the people and self-grown, safer, and close to the customer.
Marijn?
I follow you, Sita. I think the most important thing is education. I think we might look like a lot of people here, but we're still a niche in a niche in a niche, probably. So we need to speak out as much as possible, and I would urge every company to always keep a little bit of your budget for education, because in the end, if we together build a bigger cake, your piece will also be bigger. So I think that's what we always need to stay in focus. We are in it together, you know. We have to grow our roots together in order for this field to really grow. And sometimes you get confused. We're inside our bubble too much, and it looks all big. But especially in industrial hemp, many people don't even know the plant is waiting for them to be used. And I think this is the biggest unlocked potential hemp still has.
Dirk, may I add one word, because I did not speak so much. So I think the idea of information and education can be united. So unite in associations, unite your talents, the powers which is existing, because no company has the money to do it by itself. So unite for that, share your ideas, take do not look as competitors, but look as future partners, because your competitors are outside and you are not able to deal with that. But this is, I think, what I would like to say.
Sita, you took my words, because that's what was my message to all of you. You know, I would like you to work together, be patient, and before I give it into the audience for probably one question.
One question, maybe two.
I want to say two words, because we have achieved this bill through a lot of work, and one of the people who drove that relentlessly over the last couple of years, unfortunately died in October last year. And I want everybody to have a moment to remember Jürgen, who was our managing director of the Industry Association, who was really one of the key drivers to get here. And I hope he is sitting over there somewhere and be with us.
Fantastic. We have time for one, maybe two questions.
Awesome. Hello? Okay. I'll give a really quick introduction because I know we only have time for like one question, but hello, my name is Charity. I'm the founder of a blog. It's called Dank Mamas, and basically, to give you a long story short, I'm from Los Angeles. I've been living in Berlin, and I think, as you guys all talked about, there's so much opportunity, and there's so many like amazing things coming, I think specifically to Germany. And I think, Sita, you brought up like, I, like right now, am a medical cannabis patient, and I used to buy off the street. I used to be like, yo, this dealer is literally pulling weed out of his balls. Like,
oh, Jesus.
Am I really gonna smoke this? Ooh. And I think, Marjan, like you also said, like we've opened this box, and now it's like, when is it gonna get to that next point of like, we have it normalized, it's retail, you know, you're going in to buy weed next to like your teacher or your grandma, etc. So if each one of you could just like very quickly, what would be your prediction of the year, specifically in Germany, that recreational cannabis would be legal? Like just kind of what you're thinking, what would that be? I think it's gonna be a very pivotal moment, a moment for a lot of opportunity for a lot of people. And yeah, we can't really know with regulation and everything, but I personally, I have like a gut number in mind, but okay. I would love to hear from you guys. Yeah, what would that number be?
Let's start with Marijn.
I would say 5 years, and then it's completely open.
Henry?
Same, I agree with Marijn.
Good. Anybody doesn't agree? Sita, you probably don't.
I also agree with Marin.
I'm afraid I'm a little bit more pessimistic because although Germany is a fantastic country, we are not alone. And we are not this kind of attitude that we go by ourselves. So we have a lot of countries. We have the United Nations, we have the Single Convention, we have the Schengen. I think it will be a little bit more time to get there. And the present European Parliament is not there for agreements, unfortunately.
That's why we need pilot projects to have for the next 5 years the evidence.
What a great
we can do that.
But I don't think I would not necessarily agree with you, Sita, because I definitely see some development on the European level, and that there are definitely also some people who are very active in harm reduction and on a policy level that are driving things like framework decisions. And it would be good for us as Europe, because we are a trade zone, if we find more harmonized rules across countries so we don't end up in the same situation as the US.
Thank you. And I will give two parts of the answer. One is a very German one, and that's I don't think we will ever be in a position where we have comparable situation than the US. And the other one is the industry association. Let's start really think outside of the box. And I think what just Timo said, that we have to have these pilot projects to understand what works, is the key to a lot of questions we are having here. Why do we have so much medical use? Because it's the only way you get legal cannabis, and every gram sold through a legal channel is a good gram of cannabis. And the other thing is, Europe is slow, Europe is very detailed, so we will need to find our own way, and that will be a challenge. So I don't agree with 5 years from a European perspective, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10 years, and we will have a solution. But it will not be the US solution or the Canadian solution.
Great. Thank you all very much. We're out of time. Let's hear it for our panel. That's, of course, one of the challenges is always that the people are always ahead of the politicians. You know what I mean? The people want everything to move faster, and the politicians do their best to keep things from moving at all.